I break your legs, you'll never be able to run away again. I trembled as I stared at the silver-haired girl standing before me. She held a heavy iron chain in her hands, her face adorned with a gentle, terrifyingly sweet smile. Yesterday, I had simply rescued a wounded little fox. Who could have guessed that in the middle of the night, she would transform into a nine-tailed celestial fox? Not only had she demolished my wall with a single swipe of her tail, but she had also forcibly bound my soul to hers in a life-or-death pact. A holographic blue screen floated in my vision. System alert. Please pamper her immediately. Failure to comply will result in termination. I looked at the 9 massive tails swaying behind her and felt like crying. This wasn't a girlfriend. This was an ancestral deity come to exact judgment. Ding. Host's intense desire for survival and wealth detected. Binding conditions met. God level check-in, system binding. 10%, 50%, 100%. Binding successful. Congratulations, Luke Asher. From this day forward, your life will reach its peak. It was dusk. Inside a cramped $800 a month studio apartment in the gritty the district neighborhood of Seattle, a place where cockroaches outnumbered tenants, Luke Asher was slurping instant ramen while scrolling through his phone. The mechanical voice exploding in his brain nearly made him spray broth all over his 5-year-old cracked screen. What the hell? Luke shot up from his creaky thrift store chair, eyes wide as saucers. A system. As a veteran reader of web novels, he knew exactly what those words implied. It meant sports cars, supermodels, mansions. It meant never eating instant ramen again. It meant rubbing his landlord's face in the dirt. Host, please remain calm. This system is dedicated to providing premium service to help you ascend to the pinnacle of life. The voice in his head spoke again. It was cold and robotic, yet to Luke, it sounded sweeter than any lover's whisper. He shook with excitement, stammering, is there a starter pack? Starter pack automatically opened. Detected host's current environment is home. Conditions met for first check-in. Check-in location, home. The initial ground filled with host's aura. Do you wish to perform the first check-in? Check-in. Now. Immediately. ASAP. Luke practically roared. Check-in successful. Congratulations, host. You have received a God-tier reward. One absolutely loyal follower. Generating follower data. Generation complete. Teleporting to host in 3 seconds. Please prepare yourself. A follower? Luke paused. What was that? A henchman? Or, before he could think, the air in the center of his tiny apartment began to ripple like water. A circle of soft, white light bloomed from nothingness, and within the radiance, a tall, slender silhouette slowly materialized. As the light faded, Luke's breath hitched. It was a woman beautiful beyond the capacity of language. Her silver hair cascaded to her waist like spun moonlight. Her face was flawless, her skin pale as snow, her features exquisite enough to be a masterpiece sculpted by the gods. Her eyes were particularly striking, slightly upturned, phoenix-like, glowing a mysterious pale gold. One glance seemed capable of stealing a man's soul. She wore a simple white sundress, yet she wore it with the regal air of a goddess descending to the mortal realm. Gulp! Luke swallowed hard, feeling his heart hammering against his ribs. This is my follower. God-tier rewards really lived up to the hype. Upon appearing, the woman's pale gold eyes scanned the shabby apartment. Her beautiful brows knit together slightly, a look of distaste crossing her face. But the moment her gaze landed on Luke, the disgust vanished instantly, replaced by a scorching, almost fanatical light that Luke couldn't quite comprehend. She lifted the hem of her dress, her bare feet white as jade, and walked toward Luke step by step. Every footfall felt like it was stomping on Luke's heartbeat. Finally, she stopped in front of him, bowed slightly, and spoke in a voice that was both ethereal and seductive. Celine greets the master. Master. Luke's brain short-circuited. The happiness was hitting him too fast. He felt dizzy. Yes, master. Celine looked up, a smile blooming on her face that could drive men to madness. From this moment on, everything Celine has belongs to you. She reached out with slender, delicate fingers and gently took Luke's hand, which was cold from nerves. Her touch was warm and smooth as polished jade. Luke felt like he might pass out from sheer joy. However, a second later, Celine's next words turned his blood to ice. Master, this place is too dirty. She looked around, her tone gentle but carrying an undeniable weight of command. And the air smells of other creatures. I don't like it. She paused, her golden eyes locking back onto Luke with a smile. So, before I build you a new palace, please allow me to clean up this garbage dump. Okay. Clean. Clean up. Luke hadn't processed it yet. Celine nodded with a smile. Then, under Luke's horrified gaze, 9 massive, fluffy, cloud-white fox tails slowly extended from behind her. The 9 tails unfurled, blocking out the light, practically filling the entire room. An indescribable, terrifying pressure descended, making it hard for Luke to even breathe. One of the tails swept out gently. Boom! The apartment's brick wall crumbled as if it were made of wet tissue paper, instantly turning into dust. Wind from the outside rushed in through the gaping hole, blowing Celine's silver hair. She maintained that breathtaking smile, but her pale gold pupils flickered with a cold, crazed light. Master, look, isn't it much cleaner now? Luke stood with his mouth agape, staring blankly at the massive hole in the wall and the screaming pedestrians on the street below. He felt his worldview shattering right along with the masonry. System, get out here. You call this an absolutely loyal follower? This is a one-woman demolition crew. Host, please calm down. The system's cold voice chimed in. Scan complete. Follower Celine possesses 100% absolute loyalty to the host. There is no danger. No danger. Luke screamed internally. You call slapping a wall into dust no danger? If she decides to get intimate with me, will I just reincarnate immediately? According to database analysis, this is the highest form of courtship for the 9-tailed celestial fox clan. It signifies her willingness to build a love nest with you. It is a good thing. Good thing my ass. Luke was losing his mind. He looked at Celine, who was smiling like a flower while dragging 9 terrifying giant tails behind her. His legs shook like a leaf in a hurricane. This wasn't a follower. This was a ticking time bomb he'd invited into his living room. Master, do you not like it? Celine tilted her head, a trace of confusion and grievance flashing in her golden eyes. As her mood shifted, the 9 tails drooped slightly, and a visible low-pressure zone began to permeate the room. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Luke shuddered, his survival instincts kicking into overdrive. He looked at Celine's teary expression, then at the hole where bricks were still falling. His brain spun frantically. No, he couldn't make her unhappy. God knows what this Yandra fox spirit would do if she got upset. I love it. Luke squeezed out a smile that looked uglier than crying. Say, Celine, you did great. Very good. The ventilation is much better now. Hearing Luke's praise, Celine's eyes lit up instantly. The cold pressure vanished, and the 9 tails behind her wagged happily, like a giant, affectionate dog. She took a step forward, nuzzling her cheek affectionately against Luke's arm, purring. As long as Master likes it, Celine would willingly tear this entire world apart and gift it to you. Luke, don't. Please don't. Thanks, but no thanks. You just want to find a hole to crawl into. The wall was gone. The noise was huge, and the landlord's pig-slaughtering screams were already audible from the hallway, mixed with neighbors' gasps. If they stayed, they'd be arrested as terrorists. Celine. Luke cleared his throat, testing the waters. Your tails. Can you put them away? They're a bit conspicuous. Of course, Master. Celine nodded obediently. With a thought, the sky-obscuring tails vanished without a trace, as if they had never existed. The terrifying pressure disappeared, and she returned to being a delicate girl in a white dress. If not for the giant hole in the wall, Luke would have thought it was a hallucination. Master, where are we going now? Celine naturally linked her arm through Luke's, pressing her body tightly against him. A refreshing, enchanting fragrance drifted into Luke's nose. Feeling the shocking softness and elasticity against his arm, Luke's face went crimson. As a 20-year-old virgin who'd been single since birth, he couldn't handle this level of contact. Let's just leave here first. Luke didn't dare look at Celine. He dragged her out, taking advantage of the chaos outside to flee the crime scene in the opposite direction. They found a small motel to stay in temporarily. The moment they entered the room, Celine skillfully began inspecting every corner, her brows furrowed, muttering to herself. This bed, the previous guest slept in it. It has someone else's scent. No, trash it. This cup, used by others. Filthy. Destroy it. And this air, too polluted. It's mixed with the breath of over 100 strangers. Simply unforgivable. Luke watched helplessly as she waved her hand, and the furniture in the room, from the bed to the table to the TV, silently disintegrated into powder. Luke. He was numb. He realized this lady had severe germophobia and possessiveness. Everything that didn't belong to him was, in her eyes, trash that needed purifying. Master, don't be afraid. Celine seemed to notice Luke's stiffness. She turned and hugged him, comforting him softly. Celine will create a purely clean world that belongs only to us. You call that clean? You call that scorched earth? Luke screamed internally, but on the outside, he could only force a smile. Yeah, great. System alert. Follower Celine is in a good mood. Loyalty to host plus 0.01%. Current loyalty, 100%. Loyalty can break the cap. Luke felt his understanding of the world refreshing once again. He decided that until he had enough power to protect himself or control this Yandere Fox spirit, he absolutely could not let her clean up randomly again. Otherwise, he suspected he'd eventually see a news headline. Shocking. City mysteriously vanishes from map overnight. The next day, Luke had to bite the bullet and go to classes. He couldn't drop out just because his household now included a demolition crew. Naturally, Celine followed him every step of the way. When the two appeared together on the campus of Rainier University, it caused an immediate sensation. Celine's face was a walking hormone harvester. Men and women alike were involuntarily drawn to her. The contradictory temperaments of purity and seduction blended perfectly in her. Every smile and frown was enough to captivate souls. Holy crap. Who is that? She's gorgeous. Is she a new transfer student? Compared to her, the so-called campus queens we had before look like jokes. Who's the guy next to her? Wearing thrift store clothes looks average. How'd he land a goddess like that? Damn it, pearls before swine. Countless gazes of envy, jealousy, and hatred stabbed into Luke like knives. Luke felt uncomfortable all over, wishing he could disappear. Celine, however, ignored the surrounding stares completely. Her entire attention was focused solely on Luke. She affectionately held Luke's arm, occasionally standing on tiptoe to fix his collar, behaving as intimately as a couple in the honeymoon phase. This made the jealous onlookers even more sour. Just then, a flashy red Corvette roared up and screeched to a halt in front of them. The door opened, and a guy stepped out wearing designer clothes, hair slicked back with oil, looking like a reasonably handsome rich kid. He took off his sunglasses, revealing a smile he thought was charming, and walked straight toward Celine, completely ignoring Luke. Hello there, beautiful. I'm Brad Sterling, Vice President of the Student Council. I was wondering if I could have the honor of buying you a coffee. Brad Sterling, the university's notorious playboy. Relying on his family's money, he acted like a tyrant on campus, ruining countless naive students. He clearly had his sights on Celine's beauty and wanted to pull his usual moves. Celine didn't even glance at him. She continued smiling at Luke. Master, we're going to be late. Let's go. Being so thoroughly ignored made Brad's expression turn ugly. He believed there wasn't a woman at Rainier University he couldn't get. Beautiful, don't be so cold. He reached out, trying to grab Celine's wrist. Just making friends. His hand didn't even touch Celine. Suddenly, a heart-palpitating chill engulfed the entire plaza. Celine, who had been holding Luke's arm, let her smile vanish. She slowly turned her head, her pale gold eyes staring coldly at Brad. There was no emotion in them, only pure, biting, killing intent. Filthy hand, she whispered, her lips barely moving. Remove it. Brad shivered at the murderous intent in her eyes, instinctively retracting his hand. But he quickly recovered, realizing he'd been scared by a woman's glare, and flew into a rage out of humiliation. Bitch, I'm giving you a chance. Do you know who I am? Believe it or not, I'll. Before he could finish, Celine moved. Her figure blurred like white lightning, instantly appearing in front of Brad. A pale, slender hand clamped around his throat, lifting him entirely off the ground. Crack! The sound of fracturing bone was audible. Brad's face instantly turned purple, his feet kicking helplessly in the air. The surrounding students were terrified, gasps erupting from the crowd. Luke was also startled by the sudden violence. He knew Celine was strong, but he didn't expect her to actually kill someone over a few words. This was in broad daylight. If she killed him, the sky would fall. Celine, stop. Luke didn't have time to think. He lunged forward, grabbing Celine's wrist. Let him go. Celine slowly turned back to look at Luke, a trace of confusion flashing in her cold golden eyes. Master, he insulted you. He coveted your property. According to the rules of the Fox clan, he deserves death. Her voice remained calm, as if stating a trivial fact. I said let go. Luke deepened his voice, using a commanding tone. He had to stop her. He feigned extreme anger and dominance, glaring at Celine and growling. You are my follower. Without my order, who gave you permission to act on your own? He was gambling that the system's claim of absolute loyalty was true. Sure enough, hearing Luke's rebuke The killing intent in Celine's eyes slowly receded. She stared blankly at Luke, seeming somewhat at a loss. After a few seconds, she loosened her grip. Thud! Brad hit the ground like a sack of mud, clutching his neck and coughing violently, gasping for fresh air, his face written with the terror of a near-death experience. Get lost! Luke pointed at Brad, shouting with all his strength. Brad scrambled into his Corvette, slammed the gas, and fled faster than a rabbit. Crisis averted. Luke finally let out a breath, feeling his back soaked with sweat. He turned to look at Celine, only to find her head lowered, looking like a child who had done something wrong. Her eyes were red, and she looked incredibly wronged. Master, I just wanted to protect you. Luke's heart softened, but he kept his face stern. He sighed, took her hand, and said softly, All right, let's go to class. He knew he had to get stronger quickly. Otherwise, he would forever be on edge, cleaning up messes for this ancestor. He needed power enough to control himself and control her. Just beating the bell, Luke dragged Celine into the classroom. The instructor was a middle-aged, balding man, lecturing with spittle flying. He frowned when he saw them, but upon seeing Celine's breathtaking face, he swallowed his words and impatiently waved for them to sit. Luke felt like he'd been granted amnesty and pulled Celine to empty seats in the back row. All morning, Luke sat on pins and needles. Celine sat right next to him, her pale gold eyes staring unblinkingly at him. The gaze was so focused it felt like he was the only person left in the world. It made Luke uncomfortable all over. He didn't absorb a word the professor said. Finally, class ended. Luke felt exhausted. Ding. New check-in location refreshed. Please proceed. The system's prompt finally chimed in his mind. Luke perked up, asking mentally, where's the new location? Check-in location, Rainier University Library, the ocean of knowledge, the sanctuary of wisdom. The library? Luke's eyes lit up. Perfect. He had been wondering how to find an excuse to ditch Celine so he could check in alone. Celine, I need to go to the library this afternoon to look up some materials. You go. Before he could finish, Celine smiled and cut in, Okay. Where Master goes, Celine goes. Luke. Wright couldn't shake her. He helplessly led the clingy fox spirit toward the library. Once there, Luke found a seat by the window, pretended to pull 2 thick textbooks from the shelf, spread them on the table, and feigned reading. Celine sat obediently across from him, chin resting in her hands, still staring at him infatuatedly. Luke felt his scalp tingling under her gaze. He whispered, Celine, this is a library. We need to be quiet. Can you stop staring at me and read a book yourself? But Master is better looking than books, Celine said matter-of-factly. Luke nearly coughed up blood. Lady, are you complimenting me or torturing me? He took a deep breath, pointed to a bookshelf not far away, and said, Go over there and find me a copy of Advanced Calculus, Problem Analysis, okay? He made up a random title just to send her away for a moment. Okay, Master. Celine nodded obediently and walked toward the shelves. Seeing her walk away, Luke immediately chanted in his mind, System. Check-in. Ding. Check-in successful at Rainier University Library. Congratulations, host. You have received a God-tier reward. SSS rank, Close Quarters Combat, CQC, Mastery. Distributing reward. Instantly, a massive stream of information flooded Luke's mind like a bursting dam. Punches, kicks, elbows, knees, grappling, joint locks, ground fighting. Countless combat techniques, force applications, and combat experiences were branded into the depths of his brain in a single second, merging perfectly with his muscle memory. He felt his body undergo a drastic change in an instant. Every muscle, every nerve was filled with explosive power. He now had a strong confidence that, if he wanted, he could easily take down 3 or 5 strong men in 100 different ways. Awesome. Luke clenched his fist, feeling the power surging within him, ecstasy in his heart. This was the feeling of power. Although it couldn't compare to Celine's world-destroying strength, it at least gave him a sliver of self-defense capability. He was no longer a helpless weakling. Master, I'm back. Celine's voice came from behind. Luke jumped, quickly composing himself and turning around casually. Celine was holding a thick book. It was exactly the Advanced Calculus, Problem Analysis he had mentioned. How'd she find it? Master, for you. Celine placed the book on the table. Oh, all right, thanks, Luke said dryly. His mind was full of the combat skills he just obtained. He wanted to find a place to test them immediately. Master, you seem a little different. Celine suddenly tilted her head, her pale gold eyes examining Luke curiously. Luke's heart skipped a beat. Nervously, he asked, different how? I can't describe it. Celine leaned closer, sniffing carefully, then extended the tip of her pink tongue to lick her lips, smiling. It's just that you feel tastier. Boom. Luke's face went red to the roots of his neck. This vixen, in broad daylight, in a library, saying such suggestive things. He didn't dare stay any longer, afraid he might die on the spot from tachycardia. Cough. Research done, let's go. Luke grabbed his bag and practically fled. Celine watched his retreating figure, the smile on her lips deepening. She slowly followed, seeming in an exceptionally good mood. Walking out of the library, Luke found a deserted corner and leaned against the wall, panting heavily. For a moment there, he really felt like he was going to be eaten by Celine's gaze. He had to adapt quickly. He had to get stronger. Otherwise, sooner or later, this Yandra fox would be the death of him. He looked at his hands, clenching them again. Power. I need more power. That evening, Luke made an excuse about a student council event that required him to stay out late, tricking Celine into returning to their new apartment first. The reason it was a trick was that he didn't go to any student council event. Instead, he snuck into an abandoned warehouse near the campus rear exit. He wanted to test his new strength. The warehouse was piled with old desks and debris. Luke took a deep breath, recalling the combat techniques in his mind, and assumed a standard boxing stance. His eyes narrowed, body snapping into motion as he punched a waist-high metal filing cabinet in front of him. Bang! A dull, heavy sound. The solid metal cabinet caved inward under his fist, leaving a massive dent. The entire cabinet shook violently. Luke looked at his fist, unharmed. He was stunned. This power was terrifying, and this was without using his full strength. SSS rank CQC wasn't just technique. It was the ultimate utilization of physical force. He tried kicks and elbow strikes. Every hit left shocking damage on the discarded furniture. He felt like a superhero from a movie, filled with a sense of power he'd never known. Too strong. Luke flushed with excitement. Although this power was nothing compared to Celine, to him, it was a quantum leap. It gave him hope that one day he could truly control his own destiny. Satisfied with the test, Luke left the warehouse. Returning to the new apartment building, he looked up at his floor. The windows were dark. Was Celine asleep? He sighed in relief, tiptoed upstairs, and gently unlocked the door. The room was pitch black and silent. Luke felt along the wall, ready to flip the switch. Just as his fingers were about to touch it, a ghostly voice drifted from the direction of the living room sofa. Master, you're back. Click. The light turned on. Luke saw Celine sitting quietly on the sofa, hugging a pillow. Her pale gold eyes stared at him eerily under the lights. Her face held no expression. No smile, no anger, just a dead calm. But it was this calm that sent a chill shooting from the soles of Luke's feet to the top of his skull. It was 100 times scarier than when she was angry. Why? Why didn't you turn on the lights? Luke forced a smile uglier than crying, his heart pounding wildly. I was waiting for Master to come home. Celine's voice was as calm as stagnant water. Didn't Master say he was going to a student council event? Yeah. Luke lied through his teeth. Is that so? Celine slowly stood up from the sofa, walking toward him step by step. But I asked every member of the student council at your school. They all said there were no events tonight. Luke broke into a cold sweat instantly. He forgot, with Celine's abilities, checking something like that was child's play. And Celine stopped in front of Luke. She was half a head shorter than him, tilting her face up slightly, her pale gold eyes locking onto his. Master smells of dust and rust. She reached out a finger, gently brushing a speck of dust from Luke's shoulder and bringing it to her nose to sniff. Then she smiled. The smile was beautiful, but to Luke, it was more terrifying than a demon. Master, you lied to me. It was a statement, not a question. You snuck out because you wanted to run away from me. Her voice was light, soft, like a lover's murmur, yet carrying biting frost. Luke, where were you trying to run? Luke's mind went blank. He felt like a venomous snake had fixed its gaze on him. His body went rigid. Suddenly, Celine stood on tiptoe, extended her arms, and hugged him tightly. Her body was soft and fragrant, but Luke felt like he was being crushed by an iron hoop, nearly suffocating. Celine buried her face in the crook of his neck, taking a deep breath, and whispered in his ear with a dreamlike tone, "It doesn't matter. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, Celine will find you. And then, I'll break your legs, make the most exquisite collar, and lock you by my side. Forever and ever." She looked up. Her exquisite face was filled with a morbid, crazed obsession. She pulled out Luke's phone. The screen was lit, showing a map interface with a blinking red dot clearly marking his current location. Master, from now on, wherever you go, you must take this with you. Otherwise, Celine will worry. Worried enough to want to destroy the world. Seeing the madness burning deep in her golden pupils, Luke knew she wasn't joking. For the first time, he realized with crystal clarity, he wasn't a master. He was a pet locked in a gilded cage. After that heart-to-heart night, Luke behaved himself for a few days. He didn't dare try any tricks to shake Celine off. He went to class on time, came home immediately after, moving in straight lines like a model student. Celine seemed satisfied with this state of affairs, reverting to her gentle, obedient persona. But Luke knew well that beneath that gentle mask lay terrifying paranoia and madness. One afternoon, Luke was preparing to go to the cafeteria with his dorm roommate and best friend, Bobozo Miller. Celine walked over carrying an exquisite bento box. "Master, I made you lunch." She opened the box, and a tempting aroma wafted out. The food was balanced, colorful, and looked delicious. Except, the presentation was a bit unique. The rice was molded into the shape of Luke's head. Carrots were cut into the letters Master. Broccoli formed heart shapes. Even a fried egg was in the shape of love. The whole box radiated a heavy aura of affection. The corner of Luke's mouth twitched. "Whoa, sister-in-law, your skills are insane." Bozo, a boisterous guy on the heavier side, stared at the fancy lunch, eyes popping, practically drooling. He slapped Luke on the shoulder, winking tactlessly. "Look, man, you're too lucky. A girlfriend this hot and domestic? Did you save the galaxy in a past life?" Bo didn't know Celine's true identity. He just thought she was Luke's goddess girlfriend. "By the way, sister-in-law, do you have any extra? Can I have a bite?" Bo rubbed his hands together, looking at Celine expectantly. Luke's heart skipped a beat. Bad move. He opened his mouth to stop it, but it was too late. The smile on Celine's face slowly vanished. She turned her head, looking at Bo with her pale gold eyes. The look was like staring at an inanimate object. "What did you say?" Her voice was soft, yet the air around them seemed to solidify. Bo felt creeped out by her stare, but being dense, he didn't realize the danger. He continued grinning. "I said, sister-in-law, could I have?" "I made this with my own hands from Master," Celine interrupted, enunciating every word. "It belongs exclusively to Master. Any scum who tries to touch Master's things should be ground into meat paste." She said the last sentence with a smile, but the smile leaked a gloomy chill that made one's blood run cold. A terrifying killing intent locked on Bo instantly. Bo's smile froze. He felt like a prehistoric beast was targeting him. Goosebumps rose all over his body, and a chill shot up his spine. He finally realized that this impossibly beautiful woman seemed very dangerous. "Don't, Celine." Luke was scared out of his wits. He quickly stepped in front of Bo, shouting at Celine, "He's my brother. He was just joking. What are you doing?" He couldn't watch his best friend die over a joke. Shouted at by Luke, the killing intent on Celine slowly receded. She looked at Luke protecting Bo, a thick layer of grievance, and jealousy flashing in her golden eyes. Why? Why does Master protect others? Aside from me, there shouldn't be anyone else by Master's side. "Master, he's my best friend," Luke said firmly. "I won't allow you to hurt him." With that, he grabbed the still trembling Bo and turned to leave. "Bo, let's go to the cafeteria." Bo stumbled a few steps, pulled by Luke, before coming to his senses. He looked back fearfully. Celine was still standing there, quietly watching their retreating backs. Her face had regained that gentle smile, but in the sunlight, that smile looked exceptionally eerie. Bo shivered, whispering to Luke, "Luke, your girlfriend, is kinda scary." Luke smiled bitterly, not knowing how to explain. What could he say? That she wasn't human, but a 1,000-year-old fox demon? That she was a possessive Yandere? Say that, and Bo would think he was crazy. She just has a personality? Yeah, personality, Luke mumbled vaguely. "Don't joke like that with her in the future." "Like I dare." Bo cried. "I felt like she really wanted to kill me just now." Luke fell silent. He knew it wasn't just a feeling. If he hadn't intervened in time, Bo might be an unrecognizable pile of matter right now. A deep sense of powerlessness rose in his heart. He couldn't even protect the people closest to him. This feeling was suffocating. Get stronger. He had to get stronger at any cost. To get stronger, Luke began frantically looking for the next check-in opportunity. He prayed every day for the system to refresh. Finally, 2 days later, the prompt sounded again. Ding. New check-in location refreshed. Please proceed. Check-in location. Rainier University Gymnasium. Place of sweat. Palace of strength and passion. The gym. Luke rejoiced. This was another perfect excuse. He could tell Celine he was going to exercise to build up his physique. It was reasonable. Celine shouldn't be suspicious. Sure enough, when Luke suggested going to the gym, Celine just tilted her head in thought, then smiled and agreed. Master wants to exercise? Okay, Celine will go with you. Luke? Fine, same old story, couldn't shake her. But it didn't matter as long as he could check in. They arrived at the gym. It was bustling, filled with young men and women sweating it out. Luke found a relatively empty weight section and started doing warm-ups for show. Celine acted like a dutiful attendant, holding a towel and water, never leaving his side. Naturally, her exquisite face and hot figure became the center of attention again. Countless burning gazes focused on her. Luke felt immense pressure. Taking advantage of a moment when Celine went to buy him a sports drink, he snuck to the center basketball court and chanted internally, "System, check-in, ding, check-in successful at Rainier University Gymnasium. Congratulations, host. You have received a God-tier reward, God-tier physique. Distributing reward." As the voice faded, a warm current instantly spread through Luke's limbs and bones. He felt his body undergoing an incredible transformation. Muscles, bones, meridians, blood. Every cell seemed to be cheering, jumping for joy. An unprecedented power surged continuously from deep within his body. His strength, speed, stamina, reaction time. In this moment, they all received an explosive upgrade. If SSS rank CQC gave him a sharp weapon, then the God-tier physique gave him a wildly powerful body capable of wielding that weapon perfectly. Combined, his combat power increased geometrically. This is amazing. Luke was so excited he almost jumped. He felt like he could easily sweep the gold medals in every track and field event at the Olympics right now. Just as he was immersed in the joy of surging power, a discordant voice came from the side. Yo, isn't that the pretty boy? What? Did your sugar mommy dump you? So you have time to hit the gym? Luke turned around, frowning. Several guys in basketball jerseys, tall and bulky, were walking toward him with unfriendly expressions. The leader was none other than the rich kid Brad Sterling, who had been scared witless by Celine a few days ago. Clearly, he was here for revenge. Being choked nearly to death by a woman in public was a humiliation he couldn't swallow. After investigating, he found out Luke was just a powerless poor loser relying on that mysterious woman for protection. Seeing Luke alone today, he immediately brought his basketball buddies to surround him. He wanted to show Luke the consequences of offending Brad Sterling. Kid, that bitch isn't here today. Let's see who protects you now. Brad cracked his knuckles, sneering as he approached. Behind him, the basketball players rubbed their fists, looking mocking. To them, dealing with a skinny frame like Luke's was overkill. People nearby noticed the conflict and stopped exercising, gathering around to watch the show. Luke looked at the aggressive group, but there was no fear on his face. In fact, he kind of wanted to laugh. Talk about perfect timing. He was just worrying about having no place to test his explosive strength, and these blind idiots delivered themselves to his door. This wasn't revenge. This was charity work. You pretending to be tough, kid, about to die, and you're smiling. Brad saw Luke wasn't scared but smiling, feeling his authority challenged, and grew angrier. Get him. Beat him half to death. I'll take responsibility. At his command, the basketball players, all over 6'3", lunged at Luke like hungry wolves. They're fighting. That skinny kid is doomed. Those are varsity starters. They're built like tanks. Call the police. Gasps erupted from the onlookers. Everyone assumed Luke was about to be beaten beyond recognition. However, what happened next made everyone's jaw drop. Facing the siege of several strong men, Luke didn't dodge. Just as the first fist, size of a sandbag, was about to smash into his face, he moved. His movement was so fast, it was a blur. Bam! A muffled thud. The aggressive jock flew backward as if hit by a speeding truck, crashing heavily 7 or 8 meters away and passing out cold. Silence descended instantly. Everyone stared dumbfounded, minds blank. What has happened? Is this a movie shoot? The remaining players froze, having not even seen how Luke struck. Together, one shouted, emboldening himself. The three exchanged glances and attacked Luke from different directions. The corner of Luke's mouth hooked into a cold arc. He shifted his footing, his body dodging their combined attack at an impossible angle. Then he struck. A chop with his left hand struck precisely on one guy's carotid artery. The guy didn't even grunt before his eyes rolled back and he collapsed softly. A whip kick with his right leg, fast as lightning, slammed into another guy's side with a howling wind sound. That guy screamed, flying like a broken sack into the gym equipment. The last one, seeing his companions instant KO'd one after another, was terrified and tried to run. But Luke gave him no chance. He caught up with a stride and executed a clean shoulder throw, slamming the guy into the floor. Boom! The entire gym floor seemed to vibrate. The guy twitched twice and followed his friends into unconsciousness. Less than 10 seconds. For massive varsity players, all KO'd. The process was fluid, decisive, filled with violent aesthetics. The gym was silent, save for heavy breathing. Everyone looked at the composed teenager in the center like he was a monster. And the instigator, Brad Sterling, was completely stupefied. He stood frozen, legs shaking like he was dancing Gangnam style, a smell of urine wafting from his pants. He actually peed himself. Luke slowly turned and walked toward Brad step by step. He still wore a harmless smile. But to Brad, that smile was more terrifying than a devil's grin. Don't come over. Brad retreated in panic, falling on his butt. My dad is the chairman of Sterling Corp. If you touch me, he won't let you off. Oh, is that so? Luke walked up to him, looking down with a smile that grew brighter. Perfect. I haven't had enough yet. He slowly raised his foot. Just then, a crisp, pleasant voice came from outside the crowd. Master, are you playing a game? You're amazing. Celine walked over smiling, holding 2 sports drinks. She glanced at the unconscious jocks on the floor, then at the shivering Brad, her pale gold eyes flashing with excitement and obsession. Master, you were so handsome just now. She walked to Luke's side, looking up at him with adoration. The way you got angry for me. Truly captivating. Luke, don't make stuff up. He just wanted to test his strength and teach these idiots a lesson. How did it turn into hero's rage for the beauty in her mouth? But Luke couldn't be bothered to explain. He looked down at Brad, who was about to faint from fear and lost interest. Dealing with such a coward was beneath him. Get lost, he said flatly. Don't let me see you again. Brad scrambled away like he'd been granted amnesty. Luke watched his pathetic back, feeling a surge of satisfaction. This was the feeling power brought. To do as one pleased, to dictate others' fates. However, when he turned back and met Celine's burning gaze, that satisfaction vanished. He knew his power was still nothing compared to hers. His road to dominance was still very, very long. After the gym incident, Luke became famous at school, but not in a good way. Rumors of kicking the basketball captain flying and beating 4 athletes solo turned him into a violent maniac in many eyes. Coupled with the beautiful Celine following him, he was labeled a pretty boy bully. He became a pariah. Luke enjoyed the peace. With no one bothering him, he could wait for the next check-in and keep getting stronger. Celine was incredibly satisfied with this. To her, everyone fearing and avoiding Luke meant the master belonged only to her. It was the most wonderful thing in the world. Days passed quietly. One afternoon after a major class, a girl with glasses who looked quiet and scholarly blushed as she called out to Luke. She was the class representative, Emily Vance. Luke. Emily pushed her glasses up nervously. The course paper is due next week. I noticed you haven't been listening much lately. Do you need my notes? Luke paused. He didn't expect anyone to talk to him when everyone else avoided him like the plague, and it was to help with his studies. He felt a warmth in his heart. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Emily. Luke thanked her quickly. No problem. Emily took a notebook out of her bag and handed it over. This has my summary of key points and some paper topics. Hope it helps. Really, thanks. Luke took the notebook gratefully. I'll go then. Emily seemed afraid to stay near Luke too long. After handing over the notebook, she scurried away like a frightened rabbit. Luke looked at the notebook in his hand. It had neat handwriting and a faint scent of ink. He smiled and put it in his bag. All the while, Celine stood behind him, watching silently without a word. Her face still wore that gentle, perfect smile, as if she didn't care about what just happened. Luke breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe Celine wasn't unreasonable. She could accept normal classmate interactions. He rejoiced too soon. The moment they returned to the apartment and the door closed, the smile on Celine's face vanished. Thump! She dropped the shopping bags on the floor, turning to look at Luke expressionlessly. Master! Her voice was cold as ice. Who was that woman? Luke's heart sank. Here it comes. She's our class rep. Luke feigned calm. She saw I was falling behind and kindly lent me notes. Is that so? Celine walked slowly toward him, untying the ribbon in her silver hair as she moved. But why do I smell? She got very close, practically pressing against his face, using the tip of her nose to sniff gently at his neck. Her movements were slow, carrying a creepy, ritualistic vibe. Luke's hair stood on end. He didn't dare move. Smell another woman on Master? Her voice was soft, yet it hit Luke's heart like a heavy hammer. Although it's faint, mixed with ink and paper. Whenever I smell a strange female, I feel disgusted. Luke felt like his breathing stopped. He knew he had touched her reverse scale again. He wanted to explain, but words felt powerless. How do you explain normal classmate relations to a biologically paranoid Yandere? Master, do you know? Celine extended a cold finger, gently stroking Luke's cheek, her eyes filled with morbid obsession. You are the purest, most perfect work of art in this world. I do not allow any stains to tarnish you. Not even a little bit. As she spoke, she suddenly grabbed Luke's bag and yanked. The contents scattered on the floor. The notebook Emily gave him, smelling of ink, was conspicuously visible. Celine's gaze landed on it. Instantly, a terrifying pressure exploded from her, freezing the space. The room temperature dropped to freezing point. Is it this filthy thing? She slowly bent down and picked up the notebook. Then, under Luke's horrified gaze, her fingers squeezed gently. Poof! The thick notebook disintegrated into confetti as if made of tofu. The paper scraps drifted down like winter snow. A dead, suffocating oppression filled the room. Luke watched, his heart feeling squeezed by an invisible hand. That wasn't just a notebook. That was a kind girl's goodwill. Crushed by Celine, effortlessly and ruthlessly. An uncontrollable anger surged from his chest. Celine, you've gone too far. He finally couldn't hold it back, shouting at her. This was the first time he had spoken to her with such anger. Celine seemed surprised he would get so mad, pausing slightly. She looked at Luke's red face, a trace of hurt and confusion flashing in her golden eyes. Master, are you yelling at me for another woman? Her voice trembled with grievance. I'm not doing it for anyone. Luke roared, eyes red. I just think you're unreasonable. That was normal help between classmates. Why do you have to go this far? Normal? Celine laughed, a beautiful yet crazy sound. In my world, there is no normal. Any creature that approaches you, covets you, or tries to steal even a sliver of your attention from me is my enemy. They all deserve to die. She screamed hysterically, the terrifying pressure exploding again. The furniture began to shake violently, as if ready to be torn apart. Luke was forced back by the aura, but he grit his teeth, glaring at her. He couldn't retreat. He knew if he retreated today, he would never have the chance to resist again. He would be completely, eternally imprisoned in this woman's madness. I'll say it again. Luke took a deep breath, enunciating every word. She is just a classmate. We are innocent. There is nothing between us. Innocent. Celine looked at him, suddenly stopping her laughter. Her expression became unusually calm, a panic-inducing calm. Okay, Master. She nodded softly. Since you say you are innocent, then, let's play a game to prove it. Okay. Game. Luke frowned. Yes, a punishment game. Celine smiled, slowly raising her hand. In her palm, a ball of white light glowed, revealing an image. It was Emily Vance, the girl who lent the notes. She was walking home, wearing headphones, oblivious to the impending danger. Master, look. Celine's voice was like a demon's whisper. Right now, with just a thought, I can make her disappear from this world completely. No one will find out. No traces left. Just like evaporation. Luke's pupils constricted violently. You dare. Why wouldn't I dare? Celine tilted her head, asking innocently. For Master's purity, I dare to do anything. She watched Luke's pale face, her smile widening. However, I will give Master a choice. Starting now, you have two options. First, kneel down, kiss my toes, and say I was wrong, I only love Celine 100 times. If you do it, and your attitude is sincere enough to satisfy me, then I will let that innocent little thing go. Luke's fists clenched, nails digging into his flesh. Kneel? Kiss feet? This wasn't punishment. It was humiliation. Trampling his dignity as a man into the dirt. And the second choice. He squeezed the words through his teeth. The second choice. Celine smiled even more happily, her eyes flashing with cruel anticipation. Is that you do nothing, and watch as the girl who got dragged into this disaster because of you turns into a pile of meat paste right in front of your eyes. How about it, Master? Is this game fun? What is your choice? She smiled like an elegant queen awaiting her humble subject's final adjudication of life and death. Luke stood there, cold all over. He looked at the image in Celine's palm, then at this woman who smiled like an angel, but had a heart more venomous than a devil. He felt pushed to a desperate cliff with no retreat. Forward was the destruction of dignity. Backward was the blood of the innocent. How? How could he choose? There was no wind at the cliff's edge. Luke felt submerged in the deep sea, crushed by silent, freezing pressure. His dignity, his anger, his unwillingness, all seemed laughable and powerless before Celine's absolute strength and ruthless choice. He could die, but he couldn't watch an innocent girl die horribly because of him. That girl had kindness on her face. If he chose to retreat, he would spend the rest of his life tortured by guilt and cowardice, living a life worse than death. Dignity. If he couldn't even protect an innocent person, what use was laughable dignity? Luke slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the anger was extinguished, replaced by a bottomless calm and resolve. He looked at Celine, that smiling, beautiful, toxic woman. Then he moved, but he didn't kneel, nor did he kiss her feet. In Celine's shocked gaze, Luke spun around and, with all his strength, slammed his head into the solid, load-bearing wall. Crack! A dull, bone-chilling sound, 100 times louder than the notebook tearing. Blood instantly flowed down Luke's forehead, staining his eyes red and staining Celine's pale gold pupils. Celine's smile froze completely for the first time, replaced by extreme shock and panic. Luke slid down the wall to sit on the floor. The world spun, his vision blurring, but he used his last ounce of strength to look up at the panicked woman. In a hoarse but incredibly clear voice, he said, "Didn't you want to play a game? I'll play with you. Didn't you want to punish me? I punish myself. Celine, listen well." Luke grinned, blood making it look grotesque, yet filled with unprecedented determination. "This life is mine. I die when I want to die. You might control me, but don't ever think. You can enslave my will. You want her dead? Fine. I'll join her." With that, he raised his head again, preparing for a second impact. "No." Celine let out a piercing scream. Her figure turned into white light, instantly appearing in front of Luke, using her own body to shield the wall. She reached out with trembling hands, wanting to touch the wound on Luke's forehead, but daring not to. The eyes that usually held madness and paranoia were now filled only with pure, boundless fear. She wasn't afraid of destroying the world or fighting gods, but she was afraid. Afraid of Luke dying. Afraid of him leaving her in a way she couldn't control. "I was wrong. Master, I was wrong." She wept incoherently, tears falling like broken pearls. I won't play the game anymore. Don't hurt yourself. Please." The light in her palm extinguished, and the sphere showing Emily shattered. Watching her like this, the suffocating anger in Luke's heart finally found an outlet. He reached out, grabbed her collar, pulled her close, and stared into her eyes with bloodshot intensity, growling word by word. "Remember how you feel today, Celine. If you dare threaten me with innocent people again, next time, it won't be the wall I hit." With that, his vision went black, and he lost consciousness completely. In the last second before fading, he seemed to see Celine's exquisite face filled with regret and despair enough to drown the world. This was the first time, in this unequal contest, that he had won. The price was a bloody head. When Luke woke up, he found himself lying in a bed so soft it felt unreal. The environment wasn't the shabby rental, but a presidential suite decorated like a palace. The wound on his forehead didn't hurt. He touched it. Smooth, not even a scar left. Clearly, Celine had healed it with some ability. "Master, you're awake?" A sniffly, careful voice came from the bedside. Luke turned his head. Celine was kneeling on the carpet by the bed, hands resting obediently on her knees, head lowered like a schoolgirl waiting for punishment. Her eyes were swollen like peaches. Clearly, she had cried for a long time. Seeing Luke wake up, she showed joy, quickly replaced by guilt and fear. She didn't dare meet his eyes. "Master, I am sorry," she whispered. Luke looked at her, feeling mixed emotions. Angry? Of course. But seeing her pitiful state, he didn't know where to direct the anger. He remained silent for a while, before asking hoarsely, "That girl, Emily, is she okay?" "She's fine." Celine looked up quickly, promising eagerly. I didn't touch her. I won't ever touch people around you again. I swear." Luke saw the sincerity and lingering fear in her eyes. She was truly scared this time. His self-harm threat had worked. This relieved him slightly, but made him more vigilant. Being with a mentally unstable Yandra was like hugging a time bomb. You never knew when it would explode. He needed a way to truly restrain her. Just then, the system's voice sounded like a heavenly choir. Ding! New check-in location refreshed. Please proceed. Check-in location: City General Hospital, place of healing, intersection of life and will. The hospital? Luke paused. He was currently in the hospital's top VIP ward. Heaven was helping him. He looked at Celine, still kneeling. He cleared his throat. You, get up. Master, are you not angry anymore? Celine asked cautiously. I am angry, Luke said flatly. But now isn't the time for that. I'm still dizzy and want to be alone. You get out. This was the first time he used such a forceful tone to order her away. Celine's body trembled, hurt flashing in her eyes, but she dared not disobey. She let out a wronged "oh" and walked out of the room, looking back every 3 steps. Seeing her leave, Luke immediately chanted, System, check-in, ding, check-in successful at City General Hospital. Congratulations, host. You have received a God-tier reward. God-tier psychic barrier. Distributing reward. Instantly, a cool, tangible mental energy flooded his mind, constructing an indestructible golden barrier in the depths of his consciousness. God-tier psychic barrier. SSS rank passive skill. Immune to all mind control, charm, illusions, telepathy, etc. Significantly boosts willpower, allowing host to maintain absolute calm and reason at all times. This ability, Luke's eyes lit up. This was custom-made for him. Celine's most terrifying aspect, besides her destructive power, was her pervasive aura and charm that influenced emotions. Ordinary people couldn't think straight in front of her. But now, with this psychic barrier, he would never be affected by her mental influence again. He finally possessed the qualification to confront her as an equal. Luke took a deep breath, feeling the absolute calm brought by the golden barrier, and finally smiled a true, confident smile. Celine. With his psychic barrier, Luke felt the world change. Facing Celine again, he no longer felt that inexplicable, suppressed throbbing and fear. He could clearly distinguish his real emotions from the influence of her unintentional fox aura. He found that, stripped of the charm effects, Celine was still beautiful, but no longer that unreachable goddess. She was more like a pretty but severely insecure, paranoid little girl. That day, Celine linked her arm through his as usual, walking on campus. Her faint scent influenced everyone around them. Passing guys would look at her obsessively. But Luke's heart was still as water. Master, you seem different today. Celine sharply noticed the change. Is that so? Luke smiled faintly. Yeah. Celine tilted her head, confused. When you look at me, it's not as heated as before. Before, even when Luke tried to suppress it, his eyes would subconsciously reveal awe and infatuation. That was an instinct no male creature could avoid facing a 9-tailed celestial fox. But today his eyes were clear, calm, like looking at a normal, pretty classmate. This feeling gave Celine a vague sense of unease, as if something important was slipping through her fingers. Maybe. Luke didn't explain. He stopped, turned, and for the first time, calmly looked directly into Celine's eyes. Celine, let's talk. Talk. About what? Celine was caught off guard by his seriousness. About you, about me, about our relationship. Luke's gaze was sharper than ever. Your so-called love, your loyalty, to me, isn't a gift. It's a cage. You use your methods to imprison me, isolate me from the world, trying to turn me into your private possession. Do you think that is love? Celine was stunned. She instinctively retorted, I just want to protect you. This world is too dirty. Mortals are too fragile and greedy. They will hurt you. What about me? Luke asked. Have you ever thought that your suffocating protection is, in itself, the greatest harm to me? Celine opened her mouth, but couldn't speak. She had never thought about it from this angle. In her cognition, love was possession. It was offering the best things to the other person and locking them by her side, letting no one else covet them. Celine, I am not your pet, Luke said, enunciating every word. I am an independent person. I have my thoughts, my friends, my life. If you're truly loyal to me, then please respect me. With that, he gently but firmly removed Celine's hand from his arm. This was the first time he had actively rejected her affection. Celine looked at her empty hand, then at Luke's calm, determined face. An unprecedented panic, like a tidal wave, drowned her heart. She felt Luke drifting away, not physically, but spiritually, a drifting she couldn't understand or control. Luke's ultimatum threw their relationship into a strange Cold War. Celine stopped her pervasive surveillance. She seemed to be trying to understand the respect Luke spoke of, but this change made her silent and depressed. She often sat by the window alone, watching the traffic, her beautiful profile written with loneliness. Luke knew you couldn't change a 1,000-year-old Yandra overnight. It took time, and right now, patience was the one thing he had. He continued, checking in daily, his strength steadily improving. Combat mastery, god physique, psychique barrière. Every reward solidified his confidence. One day, the system refreshed a check-in location in a subway tunnel under construction downtown. Luke found an excuse to go alone. He no longer needed self-harm to buy brief freedom because Celine seemed to tacitly allow him some private space. Ding! Check-in successful at Metro Line 3 Construction Tunnel. Congratulations, host. You have received a God-tier reward. God-tier Danger Sense. God-tier Danger Sense. SSS rank passive skill. Predicts all physical and non-physical dangers targeting the host, presented as a mental warning. Another God-tier survival skill. Luke was delighted. However, the moment the reward was distributed, a sharp, piercing siren screamed in his brain like an air raid alert. A lethal, unprecedented sense of crisis enveloped his entire body. This was the Danger Sense warning. Red alert level. Where was the danger? Luke's pupils shrank. He looked up sharply toward the apartment. The danger wasn't targeting him. It was targeting Celine. He didn't have time to think. Pushing his God-tier physique to the limit, he sprinted toward the apartment like a cannonball. Meanwhile, inside the apartment, Celine, who had been staring blankly out the window, suddenly raised her head. Her pale gold eyes instantly filled with cold, killing intent. She sensed an extremely powerful, evil, and familiar aura approaching rapidly. Boom! The floor-to-ceiling window and the entire wall exploded inward. Through the dust, a towering figure shrouded in thick black smoke slowly walked in. It was a hideous monster with two curved black horns on his head, wearing tattered black armor. In his hand, he held a massive spiked mace burning with black fire. Ha ha ha! The monster let out a jarring laugh, his muddy eyes staring at Celine with greed and lust. Nine-tailed celestial fox. I finally found you. Malachor. Celine slowly stood up from the sofa. 9 massive tails manifested behind her. Terrifying demonic energy clashed violently with the monster's evil aura in the room. 300 years ago, you escaped. I didn't expect you to dare appear before me again. Escape? Malachor the Black grinned. I call that a strategic retreat. 300 years ago, you were at your peak. Naturally, I wasn't your match. But now, he sniffed the air greedily. Your primal essence is impure, tainted with the scent of a mortal. Seems you moved your heart and ruined your cultivation. Heaven helps me. Today, if I devour you, I can break my millennial bottleneck and become the Demon King. Nine-Tails, be a good girl and become my supplement. Before he finished speaking, he raised a mace and smashed it toward Celine with the force of a landslide. Malachor's strength was terrifying. Every hit carried mountain-splitting power. And Celine, as he said, was severely weakened because she had tied part of her life source to Luke. She couldn't exert her full power. Boom! 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 They fought a battle that shook the heavens in the small apartment. Furniture, walls, ceiling, everything turned to dust in the shockwaves. The entire building shook, threatening to collapse. Celine struggled to resist, but was losing ground, wounds eroding by black, smoke appearing on her body. Useless. Give up. Malachor fought harder, swinging his mace wildly. You're no match for me now. He caught an opening and smashed the mace onto Celine's shoulder. Celine sprayed golden blood, flying backward like a broken kite, crashing through several walls and getting buried in rubble. It's over. Malachor grinned, walking toward the ruins to deliver the final blow. Just then, a figure rushed in from the stairwell, fast as lightning. He looked at the devastated battlefield, then at Malachor walking toward the ruins. His eyes instantly turned red. Animal, get away from her. Luke let out a furious roar. Without hesitation, he pushed his physique to the max, blurring into a shadow as he punched toward Malachor's back. Malachor sensed the attack, sneering in disdain. Without looking back, he threw a backhand punch. Bang! 2 fists of disproportionate size collided. An unimaginable force surged from the monster's fist. Crack! Luke's entire right arm shattered instantly. He was blasted backward by the force, hitting the wall and vomiting a mouthful of blood. You dare attack me? Malachor glanced at him contemptuously, too lazy to even finish him off. To him, this mortal was already dead. He turned back to the ruins. However, he had taken only 2 steps when, behind him, the ant, who should have been dead, stood up shakily. Luke's right arm was useless, hanging limply. His chest hurt. Internal organs were definitely damaged. But he stood. His eyes held no retreat, only burning, undying battle will. I said. He used his left hand to wipe the blood from his mouth, his voice hoarse, but incredibly firm. Get away from her. With that, he charged again, fearless of death. Seeking death. Malachur was enraged. He slapped out a palm, majestic demonic energy forming a giant black hand, slamming toward Luke. This palm was enough to flatten a hill. Luke knew he couldn't dodge. He didn't even think about dodging. Looking at the approaching hand of death, he actually smiled. To fight for her, death was nothing. Just as the black hand was about to hit Luke. No. A scream sharp enough to tear the sky rang from the ruins. A white figure blocked in front of Luke with speed surpassing space and time. It was Selene. She used her delicate body to take Malachur's fatal blow. Boom! Terrifying energy exploded. Selene's body trembled violently. Golden blood overflowed from her mouth constantly. But she stood firmly in front of Luke, not taking a single step back. She slowly turned her head to look at the man behind her who didn't care about his life to protect her. Her pale gold eyes were filled with heartache, emotion, and unprecedented resolve. Master, she called softly, her voice tender to the extreme. Thank you. And I am sorry. Sorry for hurting you with the wrong methods all this time. Thank you for standing up for me, even when I was most dangerous. She reached out, gently stroking Luke's cheek. Next, please lend your body to me for a moment. As her voice fell, her body suddenly turned into billions of pure white light particles, like dancing fireflies, flooding into Luke's body. An indescribable, vast, terrifying power awakened within Luke. His hair turned moon silver in an instant. His eyes transformed into mysterious, noble pale gold. Behind him, 9 sky-obscuring fox tails made of pure energy slowly unfurled. Man and fox united. What is this power? Malachur, looking at Luke now, showed an expression of absolute horror for the first time. He felt a godlike aura from Luke that threatened to obliterate his soul. Run. That was his only thought. He turned to flee as black smoke. Leaving so soon? Luke spoke. The voice was a blend of Luke and Selene, carrying an androgynous, divine majesty. Too late. He slowly raised his hand, clenching gently toward the direction Malachur fled. Domain, 9 Lives Prison. Instantly, space seemed to freeze. Countless golden chains appeared from thin air, binding Malachur tightly in midair. No, mercy. High Immortal, have mercy. Malachur howled in terror, struggling madly, but the golden chains only tightened, cutting deep into his body. Those who blasphemed the master, Luke, looked at him indifferently, pronouncing the final judgment. Shall perish. He clenched his fingers tight. Aya! Amidst a wretched scream, the invincible Malachur the Black, along with his indestructible demon body, was crushed by the golden chains, turning into black smoke that dissipated completely. One hit. Instant kill. With Malachur gone, the vast power receded from Luke's body like a tide. His hair and eyes returned to normal. The 9 energy tails vanished. A weak, semi-transparent, white figure separated from his body, Selene. Her condition looked terrible. She could barely maintain her form. Thump! Luke's legs gave out, and he fell to his knees, gasping for air. The power just now was too great. It nearly burst his body. The two looked at each other in silence. After a long while, Luke struggled to crawl to Selene. Seeing her weak state, his heart stung. How are you? He asked worriedly. I'm fine. Selene shook her head, a weak but satisfied smile on her face. Just consumed too much primal essence. I need to sleep for a while. I'm sorry, Master. In the future, maybe I can't stay with you. Her figure became increasingly transparent. Stop talking. Luke interrupted her. He reached out with his good left hand to grab her, but it passed right through her semi-transparent body. Unprecedented panic gripped his heart. He didn't want her to disappear. Absolutely not. System. He roared mentally. Is there a way to save her? I'll pay any price. Ding. Detected follower Selene is in a near-death state. Her source is bound to Host's soul. If she dies, Host will suffer severe damage. Initiating emergency rescue plan. Plan generated. Host may choose to sacrifice half of his life force and mental strength to reshape her source and stabilize her form. Warning. This process is irreversible. It will cause permanent damage to the host. Execute. Execute. Do it now. Luke didn't hesitate. Half. Even if it took his whole life, he wouldn't blink. Command confirmed. Life force and mental strength sacrifice commencing. Instantly, indescribable pain erupted from the depths of Luke's soul. He felt like he was being split in two. Massive amounts of life essence surged from his body, turning into golden specks of light that merged into Celine's fading form. Master, no. Celine realized what he was doing and cried out in panic. But it couldn't be stopped. Nourished by the golden light, her transparent body began to solidify. Meanwhile, Luke's face went pale as paper at visible speed, and streaks of silver appeared in his hair. He traded his life for her existence. Finally, the sacrifice ended. Celine's body was fully restored, even more solid than before. Luke, however, collapsed like mud, unable to move a finger. Celine threw herself on him, looking at his pale face, tears breaking the dam again. Why? Why did you do this? I'm just your follower. No. Luke looked at her, smiling weakly. You aren't. He reached out a trembling hand, gently stroking her cheek. You are my woman. Your future, I will protect. After that battle, everything changed. Luke's body became weaker due to sacrificing half his life force, requiring a long recovery. And Celine, through this life and death experience, completely let go of her paranoia and insecurity. She understood that true love isn't imprisonment, but protection. True security doesn't come from control, but from the other person's willing devotion. She stopped interfering with Luke's social life, even encouraging him to hang out with friends. She learned to trust. She began trying to integrate into this human world she once loathed. She accompanied Luke to class, no longer staring suffocatingly, but sitting quietly reading a book. She cooked for Luke, no longer special Yander bentos, but learning delicious, normal home-cooked meals. Under Luke's encouragement, she even secretly used her powers to help people in need. The cold, rejecting aura around her was replaced by a warm, human touch. Of course, her Yandera side popped up occasionally. Like when Bold Girl tried to hit on Luke, she would subtly release a sliver of freezing demon aura to scare them away. Then she turned back, pretending nothing happened, smiling innocently at Luke. Luke would shake his head helplessly and pinch her nose lovingly. He knew this was her max restraint, and he was used to it, and loved it. It was a weekend. The sun was shining, the breeze gentle. Luke held Celine's hand as they walked down a busy pedestrian street. Celine wore a pretty floral dress, silver hair in a ponytail, smiling brightly like an elf fallen to earth. She looked around curiously, finding everything in this colorful world fresh. Master, what's that? It looks yummy. She pointed to a cotton candy stand. That's cotton candy. Come on, I'll buy you one. Luke laughed, pulling her over. He bought the biggest rainbow cotton candy. Celine licked it carefully like a child, her eyes lighting up instantly. So sweet. She held up the candy, standing on tiptoe to bring it to Luke's mouth. Master, taste it. Luke smiled, taking a bite from her hand. It was sweet. They looked at each other, eyes full of thick, melting love. Sunlight stretched their shadows long on the pavement. Ding! Congratulations, host, on completing the final hidden mission, the meaning of love. System unbinding imminent. Wishing the host and your partner a long life together, never to part. The system's final prompt rang in his mind, then fell silent forever. Luke paused, then smiled with relief. He looked down at the girl happily eating cotton candy and held her hand tighter. He didn't need the system anymore, because he already possessed a treasure more precious than any god-tier reward. Their story might have started with an absurd, forced love, but the future would continue on a path named protection and respect, forever and always. Story complete.